All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Students, I know it's a smaller group today, so I'm not going to tell you that you have to turn your cameras on or participate in any certain way because I know everyone's circumstances are different. But if at any point you feel comfortable turning your camera on or participating, unmuting, dropping questions in the chat, we really appreciate that because this event is for you. We want you to get the most out of this that you can. So engaging however is most helpful to you is how we want you to participate today. So this is our job searching. Oh, here is our last panelist. I'll let her in. This is job searching in uncertain times, advice from the class of '09. We are recording today. This will be up on Career Exploration's website following this event. So you can always go back and watch. You can tell your friends to watch if they weren't able to join today. So yeah, it's going to be posted there. I'm going to start it off with our panelists each just giving a quick intro. And while they're doing that, I'll put their bios in the chat as well, just so you can go back and view those. I know we sent those out, but just to refresh your memory, to see if there's any specific questions that you'd want to ask of them. And then I will kick it off with the first question, but students at any point, please feel free to unmute. You can put your questions in the chat, however you're most comfortable. But I think because it's a small group, we would love to just hear straight from you what your questions might be. So I will just go in order that you're appearing on my screen. So Kaylee, if you would like to give a quick intro, that would be great.
I'm going to have my mic muted when I'm not speaking because I'm at work and people tend to knock on my door. Even though I have a post-it that says, please don't bug me. My name is Kaylee Burns-Gahagan. I'm the Director of Donor and Community Engagement at Perspectives. I was a history and American Studies double major at Macalester. I graduated in '09. I've had a good handful of jobs since then, and I'm really excited I'm here in Minneapolis still. I live in Minneapolis. I work in St. Louis Park. So I'm super excited to kind of hear what folks are interested in doing and give some advice, and then connect after the panel if folks are interested in connecting further.
Thank you. Alex, you're appearing next for me. Oh, Alex, you're muted on your phone, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that. Alex James, class of '09. I was a econ major with poli-sci and American Studies double minors. I am currently basically a project management supervisor at a pharmaceutical advertising company. I think like both Philippa and Kaylee, I have had any number of jobs under the sun and done pretty much everything. I managed an ice cream store at one point. So, yeah, that's how off the cuff we're going with this. And I currently live in Brooklyn, New York. I am moving back to Minneapolis in a couple of weeks. And likewise, excited to hear any questions you guys have.
All right, thank you. Philippa?
Hi, everyone. Also class of '09, economics major with Alex, and then a mathematics minor. Like Kaylee and Alex, been doing kind of everything. '09 was a weird year to graduate. So I ended up going into finance for a while, which was not really what I had focused on in economics, and was able to do self-publishing, leading to a ghostwriting business that started in 2015. This is a very simplified timeline. And am now working for a company called ScribeCount, which is a startup for helping authors track their book sales. So.
Very cool. Thank you all. So like I said, I will kick it off with the first question, but students, please jump in. Like I said, you can put questions in the chat if that's more comfortable for you. But the first thing that I would really like to ask you all is, what are some key lessons that you learned from searching in a difficult job market that you still apply to your life today? You went through that tough time, graduated in not an ideal time to be job searching, but what did you learn from it that you can now look back and say, okay, I'm glad I went through that because now I have these strengths? And anyone can jump in, no particular order, totally up to you.
I can speak to the resilience it teaches you. It's incredibly frustrating, But if you can make it through that piece, the bottom dropped out of the economy the fall of our senior year. And so by spring, there were 0 jobs because anybody with experience was getting all of the entry level roles. So just the resilience and kind of the stick-to-itiveness of kind of continuing to look, finding the thing. I think one of the key items for me, there's been 2. One is following the lead. Like, it doesn't always mean it's your dream job, but maybe it's a thing that leads to a thing that leads to a thing. And to always put relationships first, because especially in my work, which is nonprofit, in the nonprofit world, and most work, it's all about relationships. So a person who knows a person, and if you kind of have some semblance of a relationship, there's a much higher likelihood that they'll consider you for an interview and then consider you for the job. So just following that thing, like the first thing out of college does not need to be your dream job. I was working for the US Public Interest Research Groups, making like $20,000 a year, so which factored to like $3 an hour. And then I did AmeriCorps for 2 years, and I worked at Pottery Barn. So those weren't my dream jobs, kind of 3 years out of college, but now I'm doing what I want to do. So have patience and tenacity, but also just follow whatever comes up for you.
I would have 2 things. One would be not presuming that you would know what you want to do 5 years from now, because I thought I was going to be some hotshot finance, personal finance, wealth management guy. Yeah, that didn't work out so hot. And also, I'm just that wasn't really who I was at the time, and it's definitely not who I am now. And I think just sort of giving yourself space to figure out in the real world what you actually want to do, and not holding too tight to, I was an X major, I need to go into that field. And then a bit of background that for me specifically, that really informed my career is that I was kind of on my own since about halfway through college. I didn't really have any parental support. So really the priority was always finding a job, any job, and then you can build a narrative afterwards, right? There's always some connective thread if you look for it, and you just have to be a little creative in finding it. And with that, just being flexible, like Kaylee said, just take the damn job. Like you got to pay bills. Like Sally Mae does not care. I know she pretends to care right now. Sally Mae does not care. Coming for that money. So having the money is kind of honestly really important.
Yeah, and to tack on to that about learning who you are as a person, I definitely thought that I was going to be 80, 85 hours a week working. That was going to be where I would thrive. And it was not. And I had the benefit of being able to learn that in a job that I didn't care deeply about, because that would have been so much harder if I'd gotten my dream job and then had to realize that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then also to tie back to Kaylee's point about just be nice to people, build relationships. And it's not a slimy networking thing. I definitely felt like it was going to be that way. And over time, almost all of my business opportunities have come from people that I just met, thought were interesting. We would have lunches together and talk about our jobs. There was no place that it was leading. And then a connection of theirs or something came up for them. And that was how the bridge got built. So
to sort of underscore that point about networks and just being nice to people, I actually got into advertising because I was bitching about my then current job at a bar with my favorite bartender. And this guy next to me was like, "Hey, are you a project manager?" And I was like, sort of, not really. And like, listen, I'm like 4 drinks in right now, right? I'm just like talking like wild shit. And he eventually was just like, "Well, you seem like a decent guy. Like, here's my email address, send me your resume, like, let's chat." And then 2 weeks later, I was starting my career. Also, that was at 28. So, it takes a while to figure this shit out.
Thank you all for those answers. Very, very honest and very true for sure. Students, I'm going to open it up to you all if anyone has questions that you want to jump in with right now. Otherwise, I have a few others. Okay. I'll let you think about it a little bit more. So I would love to know, when you are in that job search, or when you were in that job search, what are some things that you did to make yourself stand out? So I think Alex, you mentioned kind of take the job and then build the narrative, like figure out, okay, how does this fit into my story, even if it wasn't like a job that I felt was relevant. So if you could all talk to that a little bit, how did you tie it all together and then make yourself really stand out in that search?
One thing to start this off, one thing I want to acknowledge up front is that a lot of my experience, I was talking this over with my wife, and she wanted me to stress that like things that work for me are not going to work for other people. As you can tell, I'm a pretty casual, blunt person who curses a lot. And also clearly I'm a dude, right? So like there are tactics that I employ that are not going to work for everybody else. And I think what I would hate is for me to like give advice and then it bites somebody in the ass. So I would say, take the sort of kernel out and then translate it to your own situation as much as possible. But I'm going to drop a couple of tips that I used in chat to get the job, not even, building the narrative, because that's just sort of a creative writing exercise that you sort of refine over time, right? But just things like, don't be gimmicky and have a clean one-page resume that's legible in a good font. People really appreciate that, like really basic stuff.
Honestly, so this is interesting. I've had a lot more luck once I ditched the one-page format for the resume. So my resume is now much longer. And
Fair
for
enough.
me, that works great. But from another friend who works in software engineering, he's recommended that you always have a copy of your resume that has very little formatting. And the reason is that a whole bunch of whether or not you get an interview is it gets just sucked into the computer and parsed. And if it can't read your formatting,
Yeah.
a lot of it never gets through to the HR people. So have one that is like honestly ugly, not formatted, and just have it ready to copy and paste. Make sure it looks good, copy and pasted like that, and be careful.
Yeah.
So
On the theme of resumes, just get it right. Like we have so many people that apply to jobs that literally forget to change the title of the position, or, like, my gosh, get it right. Like that's it. That'll put you in the top 10, friends. Like, and then if you're not an asshole, then you'll get in the top 5. So it just doesn't, like, yes, you don't have a ton of experience, or maybe you do. Maybe you've been working since you were 14 and you've had 10 internships. Great. But just get it right. Like, keep it simple, no gimmicks, keep it super duper simple. But like, nobody wants to read a cover letter that says like, dear sir or madam, I would like a job at X company. It's the worst. So to tack on to that, definitely just double check everything. You might be sending out a ton of resumes and a ton of cover letters. Just make sure each one is correct.
mhm. Yeah, and as our class has been getting into the phase where we're now the people that are hiring and things like that, I would like to tell all of the Macalester people, because I know how perfectionist you are. We're some of you, and you're agonizing over a comma or a specific word, and you're up against people in the job search who are saying things like, so why do you want this job? And they'll say, well, I don't actually. And like, that is actually a huge portion of your competition. So absolutely keep doing things to a high standard, but also remember that one comma or one word, like that's not where you put your energy. Just keep doing everything to a high standard and keep yourself calm. Don't.
Yeah, don't psych
So-
yourself out. The standards might actually be lower than you
Than
think
you
they
think.
are.
And just sort of proving Philippa's point about formatting, if you look at the chat, you'll see my awful formatting that looked really excellent in Outlook, where I had it like all nicely formatted with bullet points, and then I tried to paste it and it just doesn't work. So like literally just like put it into like Notepad or whatever the equivalent
Yeah.
is, and like use like not bullet points, but like dashes, because the spacing on those read really well.
Yeah.
To go back to the original question, I wanted to share. So many of us in the class of 09 took whatever job we could take to pay the bills. We didn't get any sort of extra like loan forgiveness or kind of like, we couldn't put our loans into forbearance. So there weren't some of the strategies that have been used now, which are really wonderful things. And I'm so glad that they're being used. But like, take that job, like take that like Pottery Barn job and just do your best. Like, be the absolute best person at that job, show up, get great references, and just be honest, like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of job. And then when they get called as a reference, they're like, oh yeah, sure, okay, Kaylee's great. And it seems kind of trite to brag about like customer service awards. And I worked for American Eagle for like 5 years and I was the genius. And I put that shit on my resume. Like, I was really good at that job. And so people knew like, okay, she's kind of up here about things. So that did help me to stand out when I was looking for the next step or the career type job. So take whatever you can get, do it amazingly well, be honest, have great references, and then move on to the next thing.
And just to tack onto that as well, you'll be thinking, I know how hard it is when you get an interview with your favorite career place and you want to overlook all of the red flags. But if they look down on you for having taken what job you needed to pay the bills, that is a huge red flag. Do not go work there. Please learn from our mistakes. So good employers will respect you for doing what you needed to do for your family, for your household, for your.
They're
So
also
the-
oh, sorry, Alex, you go.
No, one thing I think that we've been dancing around is that interviewing and applying for jobs is a volume play. You're not going to snipe your perfect job or any job really. Like, you need to just be bombarding literally everything. Like, we keep on saying this, but like, it is really not a good feeling to realize that you have $5 in your bank account and be like, where the fuck am I paying rent? Like, that's a bad situation. And like, please don't, like, if you could have taken the job at McDonald's, which I literally considered, or even the military, right? Like, I know that we're all McAllister people, right? Whatever. But like, I was honestly about a week from enlisting. Well, not enlisting, but going to officer school, right? Literally, like, do what you got to do. Apply to everything.
Side note, military, not the National Guard. If you are ever tempted to join the National Guard, you call me. I will put my information in chat and I will talk you into another branch of the military and it will be better. Sorry, my husband had terrible experiences.
I slept. I was lucky enough to have a lot of friends in the class of 2010. And I slept on their floor for months because I had nowhere to live and I had a shit job that didn't pay me enough to pay rent. So like, that was where I was at. But I will say, like, I've always been in sales. Like, selling jeans is no different than selling couches, is no different than selling the mission of an organization. And so even though those positions, folks will look down on American Eagle or Pottery Barn positions, you better believe my sales skills were hardened in those places. And so those skills are all transferable. So don't let anybody tell you that, slinging jeans or polos doesn't get you anything long-term, because I still look back on things that I learned as a sales associate that I use in my day-to-day, like in phone calls with donors. It's the same exact thing. So don't think it's like, it is just to pay the bills, and do it to pay the bills, but also know that there's skills you're going to get out of those jobs that you would get nowhere else.
There's also like, so I also worked retail. I worked at Express at the Mall of America. There are some things that you'll do that feel kind of scummy in the moment, but like, the way that I think about it is, I am doing my job. This other person in this interaction has agency. Like, I am not forcing anybody to do anything, right? So I am really great at getting people to sign up for credit cards. What they do with credit cards is their own business, but also being able to have a conversation in about 45 seconds, 2 minutes, and get someone to sign up for a line of credit is like, I can talk people into doing a lot of things that, I don't do that because, I'm not an asshole, but like, it's a skill. And you learn that by standing behind a register for 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day for about 3 years.
And that actually brings in an interesting point about, your morals and finding out where your morals are. I did retail sales, and then that was actually instrumental in me getting my job after I graduated, which was in financial sales. And that was when I realized that I actually did not feel comfortable ethically trying to advise people through a giant financial crash with training that was about a world that wasn't in a financial crash. And that was part of why I navigated away from that. So you start to learn, hey, I am absolutely fine selling someone a bar of $8 soap, because it, like, if they want to spend $8 on a bar of soap, I do not care. I love this soap too, whatever. But telling someone that I know what to do with their life savings when I don't, I couldn't do that. And I washed out of sales because I wasn't getting those commissions because I didn't feel comfortable doing it. So you will find your boundaries over time and your ethics, and that'll lead you places. Maybe you will wind up, in fact, back in the job in the mall instead of in the white collar finance job, which you thought was better somehow, but not feeling terrible and finding where your morals are and defining that will definitely help.
And sort of piggybacking off of that, I think I said up front that like I wasn't the career that I thought I wanted wasn't suited for who I am as a person. It was a really hard couple of months in New York. So I moved back to New York City in 2012, which wasn't much better than 2008, but it was better. And it was a couple of really bad subway rides where I was looking at people around me, right? I was working at Express, and I was, working at this small interactive firm, and, looking at people like coming up from Wall Street, for example, right? And just being like, I can't do it. I just can't do it, right? And like, I was horribly depressed for many, many years, and like finally got a job where I was just like, oh, I don't hate this. I'm not just riding the clock. You gotta hop around and just really see what clicks, because it's probably not what you think it's going to be. And also being depressed while you're looking for a job, I can't recommend that enough, because when you're sitting on the couch and you're just like eating the fourth box of Gushers and you're just like, okay, this is not it. Like, I can't be doing this shit. There comes a point where you're just like, okay, that's enough. You know what I mean? Not to be like hard on yourself or whatever, but like it does click eventually. I have wild depression. I am on lots of medication, and it is delicious. So A, better living through pharmaceuticals. B, it's normal, like you're shooting a lot of shots and you're not hearing back, or you're getting denied, and it feels really fucking bad. And it always feels really fucking bad. And people don't tell you that it feels fucking bad. They're just like, just power through and positive thinking. And like, nah, fuck that shit. Like, come on, man. Like, you're getting rejected constantly, and it starts to wear on you. And
yes,
that's okay.
Although this is a good time to say, as someone with depression doing a job search, this is a good time to do the volume play, because you literally can't remember anymore all of the places that you applied. And so you're not sitting there being like, oh, where's that one place going to email me back? You can't remember. Just let it go. It's too many details. Send them into the ether and forget.
Thank you all. I graduated in 2010, so everything that you're all saying, I'm right there with you. So I think you were kind of reading my mind, because my next question was going to be, you're hitting rejection after rejection, or you're hearing about maybe your friend actually did become one of the lucky ones and got their dream job, or whatever it might be. How did you stay motivated during that time? What were some of the things that I know self-care is kind of a, I don't know, overused term now, but how did you take care of yourself? What were some of the things that you kept doing to keep yourself positive, or as much as you could during that time?
Well, it's something that really does help you figure out where your priorities are. So for instance, what I was finding out, as I mentioned a little while earlier, was I'm not an 80 to 85 hour a week person. I enjoy spending time with my friends. I enjoy having the evenings to read, or watch movies or any of that sort of stuff. And now that, I'm married, I have a kid, I like being able to be home and be interacting with my kid. I don't want to come home after they're asleep at night. And you will start to find out those things and be able to move toward them. And so the big thing I think I took from it was to not to let your pride get in the way of doing what's best for you. Because you think, like, we're McAllister people, we're not used to failing. We really aren't. And sometimes the best thing you can do is wash out. It really is best for you. So
I grew up pretty poor. I was a first-gen college student. My family couldn't afford to take me back in, so thus the floor living. And that kept me motivated, right? Like I had to pay bills, but also I had to prove something to my family, which obviously, like, maybe I didn't have to prove it, but in my brain I did. And I think just that alone kept me motivated, and my like anger at the annual fund also kept me motivated. Like they
That's
kept
so real.
right after, like they're like, you donated $12 to your class gift. Do you want to give 1,000? Like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Like, I'm living on someone's floor. Like, ask 2010. But no, I really, like, a lot of it truthfully was like anger that motivated me, and just feeling really deprived of what the experience should be. And truthfully, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still don't always know what I want to do. But a lot of people in 2009 went to higher ed because they didn't know what else to do, and that was an option for me. So I was thinking about going into a PhD program. And I will tell you, I am so glad I didn't do that, because a lot of those people are now adjunct staff that don't have benefits, that are getting paid $20,000 a year. But it can feel really sexy because you're like, well, I guess I'll just do school again. And then I would have $100,000 more of debt, at least. So I'm really glad I didn't just fold and go and do more school because I was used to it. I'm glad I did the harder thing at the time and lived on someone's floor.
yeah.
I think that two things, right? Like I said before, not being motivated is perfectly reasonable, and you just have to sort of get through that, however you get through that. I think three things really kind of got me through that. One, Tony, you mentioned like sort of having friends who have like hit the jackpot, right? And like Kaylee said, just sort of like that feeling of just like, why am I not hitting the jackpot? That jealousy really is a pretty good motivating factor, honestly. It's not healthy, but it is motivating, right? The other thing I think was that, how do I say this? I was in a relationship at the time, and my perception was that we kind of pushed each other to keep on making strides and pushing through the bullshit. So that was really helpful. So, friends, partners, what have you, and just sort of like building in time to try to, okay, we're going to spend an hour and we're going to do this or what have you. And the last thing I think is just look at your bank account, man.
It's also worth saying that those negative emotions, feeling spite, feeling anger, feeling jealousy, those don't lead you necessarily to bad places. You can always be saying, okay, why am I feeling jealous right now? What do I feel is missing? What do I really wish I was doing? Am I actually feeling ashamed of something I'm doing? Or, and it helps you go in the direction that you need to go. Which, again, as we've, I think, been saying pretty consistently from the start of this panel, is not always where you thought you were going, but it will help you to figure out where the best path is of the options you have. They aren't always great options. They aren't always the options you wanted, but you will find your priorities, which are often having more in your bank account and making sure you can pay your bills. And from there, you can build something no matter where you are.
Great answers. Love that. So I had a student privately chat me a question, so I'm going to hopefully ask this how they wanted it to be asked. So they are wondering, and we touched on this a little bit already, but specifically for interviews, how do you stand out in interviews and sell yourself as the best fit for the position? They said they've had experiences where they get to, the very end and it's a really competitive pool and they just get told, sorry, you weren't selected. So maybe how do you sell yourself, but then how maybe do you deal with that? How do you learn from that experience?
Actually, with interviews, I found it much better to approach an interview as you and the company both finding out if this is a good fit. And that does two things. One is you aren't going to get trapped somewhere where you're missing red flags because you're asking honest questions and making sure that it's a good fit on that end. And the other is that when you're evaluating them as well, you come across as positionally a much better bet. They're saying, okay, this person is asking me questions. They want to make sure that I'm doing something for them as well. That must mean they have some bargaining power here. And it is like, it's not always true, but it's a good positional trick when you're talking with people. And it really does help you weed out places that are going to be unhealthy in a variety of ways. So if they ask you something you genuinely don't know, you say, you know what, I don't know, this is my best guess, or this is the most comparable training I have. They may really appreciate that you said you didn't know. That may be something they were wondering if you were interested in. And so you don't always know what they're hoping to hear. And so honesty is the best policy there, but also really do evaluate them as well.
Yeah, it's so hard, I'm sure, for you all right now, like doing all of these interviews and just desperately wanting a job. I remember being in that place and being like, I don't care if they eat dogs for lunch. I need to pay my bills and I need to get this job. So I get that too, but I 100% agree with Philippa. Like, you need to be honest. And if you're not the best fit in your brain, you are absolutely not going to be the best fit in their brain. I just got turned down. I was a runner-up for a job that I really wanted. I really felt like I was a fabulous fit. I asked for constructive criticism, like critical feedback 3 times, and they couldn't tell me anything. And I finally just trusted that there wasn't any. Like, there was someone else in the pool that was a better fit for whatever they were looking for. You never know what the pool is going to be. You never know who you're going up against. So coming from somebody who takes things incredibly personally, even last week, it is not always about you. And the more you can think about it that way, and the more you can be honest about whether or not it's a good fit for you, the easier it will be to be rejected. It is never going to be easy. I have been in this world, in this career world, for 12 years. And I'm relatively successful, and it still stings. I cry every time I get rejected. The HR person, that poor woman, she was like, "It's okay," and I'm like, I'm so sorry." But like, it's always gonna suck, you know. But realistically, if you think you're the best fit, you will be able to sell that to them. If you don't think that, you won't.
I think that like Philippa and Kaylee are saying, it's never personal, right? They don't know you. You don't know them, apart from this one very awkward constructed situation. So they're not rejecting you as a person, they are rejecting this entity as a candidate, right? And I think the way that I try to think about it, and this is, Kelly mentioned, or someone mentioned, people going to grad school, right? And a lot of my friends were getting rejected from programs, and the one key thing that we eventually figured out, or someone told us, is that on the other side, they're building a specific kind of class for a grad school cohort, right? And often applicants will be amazing candidates, and any other year they would have been the top 3 person, right? But in that particular year, for that particular cohort, that wasn't the vibe or the direction that they were going. So this person didn't fit. So anytime that you're interviewing for a job, right, you are going to be part of a team. And the other person is trying to draft the best possible team And sometimes your skill set, as much as you think you're amazing and you made it to the final round and all of that, there's someone else who fits a specific role a little bit better, or there's a trajectory that that person sort of aligns to based on conversations. Yeah, I think trying to think about it from their side maybe helps out a little bit. But of course, it still sucks, but the
Also,
context helps.
for what it's worth, I've had 3 jobs that I desperately wanted and got turned down for, and crying, a week and a half of depression, the works, just wallowing in it. All 3 of them I have since looked back on and thought, oh, thank God I did not get that job. So that's not always the case. There are going to be things that you look back on and think, oh man, that would have been so cool. But more often than you'd think, you realize later that was not where you really wanted to be. You were chasing a version of yourself maybe that you weren't, and something else opened up entirely that you weren't thinking of. I'm not going to go into everything happens for a reason, because I don't actually believe that, but things do work out in unexpected ways.
I actually had that conversation with myself this morning about like how woo-woo am I gonna get? Because I'm not like a woo-woo person, but truthfully, like I am so glad, like Philippa said, that things don't work out and things do work out. And looking back, it all works out the way it's gonna work out. Like, did I want to be sleeping on someone's floor? No. Did I want to be selling couches? Absolutely not. But it's what I did, and it's what got me where I am today. And just for example, I didn't get this job that I really wanted, and then my absolute favorite organization with a Mac grad as a CEO posted the job I wanted at the next day or like 2 days later. So I mean, now I'm free to apply for that one. So in the smallest of ways, I wholeheartedly agree with like it will work out the way it's going to work out, and that's going to be okay for you.
Yeah.
One thing that I've learned in the last year, I've speaking of getting woo-woo, this is going to take a dark turn, but it's going to turn somewhere relatively positive. So my wife and I lost a baby last year, right? And it was fairly late, and it sucked a lot. It was very painful. And that going through that process with her, it sort of underlined how little control we all have over the world. And I think that as Mac people, we are really primed and trained to sort of think that we are masters of fate and that we are the best of the best. And in a lot of ways we are, right? But a lot of what happens in the world doesn't have anything to do with you, and there's no reason for it. And it just is what it is, right? And I think that sort of coming to terms with your own lack of control makes you focus on the things that you can control. So what did I do in this interaction that I could have done better? How could I present myself better? How can I be the best version of myself and the most graceful version of myself? And that has to be enough, because you can't do anything else. You're not hiring yourself. You're not reading your own resume. You can just say, based on what I know, these are the things that I can do in the future, and treat everything as an iterative learning process. And I think that's, with my therapist, that is what I am trying to do the most, is controlling the things that I can control and letting everything else go. And that really, once you do get the job, that really, that attitude of I don't run this place is so key, because you're like, oh, I'm here, I'm gonna do everything. But like, no, you're there to learn, and you're there to do a job the way someone else perceives that you should be doing the job. And that sort of paradigm shift has been really major for me in the last 2 years, whatever it is.
To slightly tack onto that, being able to say, I did the absolute best I could. All of the things I did for a good reason. And I put my heart and soul into this, makes it much, much, I guess, easier to fail, because you can look back on it and you can say, there's nothing that I should have done. I did the best I could with all of the knowledge that I had at the time. And here's what I'll do differently next time.
Thank you all for sharing that. You know, these are tough conversations and tough places to be, especially taking you back to that difficult time. And yeah, so
That's what therapy is for.
exactly. So I have another question from a student that was chatted to me. How can we reconcile with fear of taking, you know, big leaps or maybe big risks in your career search with the comfort of a more stable career? Like, how do you decide? Do you take that leap now? Do you wait it out till the market's better and just get something stable? I don't know if any of you have any insight to share on that.
I really love that question because with any application or anything that you do, the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to say no, or they're not going to say anything, right? So you either get ignored or they say no in relatively polite terms. After a while, you're just like, I fuck it, next one. You know, like we're saying, like volume play, right? Like that tension between wanting the thing and then wanting a thing, I think is going to be a really personal self-searching, because I am very risk averse in my professional career, which means that I'm not going to leave the thing I'm doing now until I have a contract for the next thing. So that necessarily constrains what I'm willing to do and how far I'm willing to jump. At the beginning of my career, I got a job through sheer nepotism and luck. And like I turned that into a thing, right? But like I was working at Express. What else are you gonna do, right? Like how much worse can it get? Express is a lovely organization. I had many great friends there. It is a wonderful place, but it's not like what we go to college to do, right? So like what go for it. Like what's the worst that could happen? You have a bad couple of months and then you're just like, ah, fuck this, I should go do that other thing. And you try to find another version of that other thing, right? And if that jump doesn't feel right, then it's not going to be right, because you're going to be scared and terrified the entire time. And as a professional, that is not a good place to operate from.
And to have a backup plan. My parents gave me some of my best career advice. God, I was pretty young actually. And they had both decided to go, they were doing a joint job together and they were moving across the state to do that. And I asked them about that process and they said, well, we knew that if it all didn't pan out and we washed out, we'd just work at a grocery store or something to make ends meet until we could find something else that we liked. And it was just like, oh, right. You know, occasionally you wash out and the worst that happens is you wash out and then you pick yourself up and dust yourself off. So even when you're taking a professional risk, it's worth that risk sometimes.
I would say I am a professional risk taker, to my detriment, really. And I was lucky enough to be partnered with somebody who's like the opposite of a risk taker. So they're the steady person, and I'm able to kind of do whatever the hell I want to do. But one thing I would say is, this is the time of your life where you're probably going to be the freest to make the biggest moves. Once you have a professional network, once you have a child or a family or a partner or extended family, and you start to settle down and buy a house and have roots, it becomes a lot more difficult and it becomes a lot more coordination and negotiation. So if you know that risk you want to take it now. Who cares? Do it. You know, I think but I will say, I do couch it with, I am a professional risk taker. But I also want to say that, like, take the risk, apply for the job, interview, let them fly you out if they want to. You can always say no. So like, you have plenty of time to sort this out for yourself in your brain. Take the risk, do the interview, use it as practice, and decide at the last minute whether or not it's something you want to do after taking advice from a bunch of different people you trust, if that's the way you do things. I will say, so my partner is incredibly steady, but they decided to be a stay-at-home parent when my daughter was born. And I subsequently lost like 3 jobs after they decided to be a stay-at-home parent. So I took a huge professional risk and I was at corporate for a very short amount of time. And that was a huge mistake. huge mistake. It felt like I lost our healthcare, I lost our income. My partner was also unemployed. My child had just started childcare, which is incredibly expensive. And it worked out. I'm fine. Everything is fine. So take the risk. Always take the risk, especially now when you are in less danger of like hurting someone else's livelihood by doing so.
And like sort of pairing what Philippa said, excuse me, what Philippa said earlier with what Kaylee just said. If you fly out and you do the interview and you take your shot, you shoot your shot, right? And then you're interviewing them, and there's nothing to say that they're actually as amazing as you think they are from the outside. Like there are so many shitty places to work for. Like I know a bunch of people who worked for Facebook, who work for any number of like tech like giants, and they're like, my boss and my team drove me like mental breakdown. So it was a bad fit for that person. And you just don't know these things until you get in there. So like, what the hell? Like, what else are you doing with your time if you don't have a job right now? Like, we're all seniors. It's April. What else are you doing with your time apart from drinking? Shoot your shot. One thing, complete left field, that I want to make sure that I get in under the wire. In the interest of getting a job, look for temp agencies. Nobody tells you this. I got so many jobs and built a really deep network of contacts at various companies by going through temp agencies. And temp agencies are financially invested in you getting the job because that's how they get paid. So they are going to give you as many things as you can possibly handle that you are qualified for, where they won't look stupid for putting you in the queue. And there are different kinds of temp agencies. There are financial, there are creative, there are all over the place, right? So which one was it? Totally blanking on the name. I'll do some quick research, put myself on mute, and drop it in the chat as well.
I have a quick question. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of have two different career paths that I'm thinking about right now. One in the like more hard sciences, but being a biologist or some researcher, and then the other path is being like an artist or writer for a company. So they're very different paths. And I have always been passionate about both things. And I'm trying to do a double major to have that kind of like flexibility. But I don't know, like I feel like I have to make up my mind at some point in order to get enough experience. And I don't know if I should be kind of focusing on getting that experience on like both sides and kind of figuring out what I want to do that way, or just kind of, I don't know, just any advice about like if there's having two different interests and how to figure that out for future careers.
You don't have to choose is one. You don't. You'll have, speaking as someone who has a lot of very wildly different divergent interests, you will bring all of those to wherever you wind up. So take what seems like the best opening you have. Look in all of the places you're interested and bring those extra interests in to inform and pick up new areas in whatever job you find. And that will really help you stand out. You know, if you're doing the writing and you have that base of knowledge that you can bring in, or if you're in the research job, but you turn out to be the person that everyone comes to help them with their emails or with, all of those things, everything actually ends up filtering up to other projects or other opportunities. So.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Don't ignore either of them, but do the thing that comes up now and follow that trail. Like there are so many ways I could have gone in my career, and it's been 12 years since I've graduated. But when I was at Pottery Barn, I interviewed for a management position there. I could have just kept doing that. When I was in AmeriCorps, which is what I did after Pottery Barn, I looked into licensure programs for emotional behavior disorders, teacher licensure. When I was at the school district, I got recruited to work for the park service. Like there's so many ways, and I could have been happy doing any of those things. I still care deeply about those things. I design things. I do design work for my own house, right? Like we're doing things in my house. So the design work I did at Pottery Barn, I'm now doing at my own home. There's like a variety of ways that it comes into your life. It might not be professionally that one of those things ticks for you. And that feels weird right now, but follow the thing that comes up for you and is the right choice at that time. And then everything, like Philippa said, will end up coming together. And you'll be on the board of an arts nonprofit someday, or, there's just so many, it feels like your career is so long, and the way that you're going to give professionally and personally to the world, it's a very long amount of time. And right now it feels like you should be doing all of those things at once, but it will come. So focus on what happens now, focus on paying the bills and making yourself well and feel good. And then just follow those crumbs.
And not all of the things that you do in the world that are the good things that you do with your talents and all that will be the way that you're bringing in money at that time, or even ever. It may be that you have a very long career, like Haley says, on boards and all of these things, and that's just not your day job. But these things work their way in as hobbies, as volunteering, as boards, as all of that. So not everything is your bread and butter money all the time.
I'm actually on the complete inverse, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone who literally has no idea what the fuck they want to do and has no professional aspirations and is just skipping through life from job to job. Like sometimes it'd be like that. Like I don't know what else to say. Like all my friends were going to grad school, like people have been saying, and I was just like, for what? Like I don't have anything to do, and that's okay. You can be perfectly fine. Like apparently my calling in life is to be a dad who makes fun of my baby, and like that feels real good to me. But like Philippa says, that ain't nobody paying me for that, right? So if you do have aspirations, do what you can to like follow them in a way that makes sense. Maybe that's not right now, like Kaylee and Philippa are saying, but it's okay. You have time, or just do a consulting thing on the side. Like you can freelance for this shit. You know what I mean? Like I know that's sometimes a little bit harder if you don't have your foot in the door or don't have professional credentials already. But be like, hey, I'll work for free. I just want to help out. Very few people are going to say no to that.
In related news, one of the things I wanted to put out there is I manage volunteers. In my entire career, I've always managed volunteers in some capacity. Volunteer, like whether you pursue the arts direction and you volunteer in the sciences or vice versa, because that's just as much of a professional network as where you earn money. My partner was a 1 hour a week volunteer tutor for an organization. And when I met them in 2009, and time and time went by, and they were a teacher, then they were a site coordinator, then they were a district coordinator. And they, I was always frustrated by that because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like Alex says, like I couldn't choose a mission and just go for it. They were very passionate about that mission, but like get yourself out there. Do some volunteering now. If you want to stay in the Twin Cities, it's never too early to start making contacts. And so if you have kind of a more, the hard sciences, you can volunteer there too, like STEM environments and things like that. But getting connected to Twin Cities nonprofits or schools or other businesses is a great way to start.
Right. That's great advice. Yeah, I totally agree with sometimes your interests end up in your life in ways that don't bring in money, and that's okay. And you can still be passionate about them. So yes, take what feels good now, and those things will definitely work their way back in. Well, thank you all so much. I'm just keeping an eye on the time, and I want to be respectful. I know we've all got back-to-back Zoom meetings probably today. So students, please give our panelists a virtual round of applause, however you want to do that. Panelists, if you feel comfortable dropping your contact information in the chat for students to follow up later, even if that's just, find me on LinkedIn, that's fine too. But this was really, really great. I always just love how, like I said, how honest answers are and straightforward. And this is a tough topic. It's a tough time. And I think our students appreciate that feeling that they're not the first to go through a tough time like this. And so you're not alone. And students, please feel free to reach out to other alums, reach out to these alums, but other alums too. They want to help. So use Mac Direct, use LinkedIn, all of those resources. We really encourage that. All right. Well, I am going to stop the recording now. So thank you again all for